Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome back to Friday Live with Team Gladiator. My name is Rachel D'Souza. I use she, her pronouns, and I am thrilled beyond my ability to have good words that my friend, colleague, partner in crime and change, Fabra Jabulani, is here with me today. Fabra, you want to tell these folks a little bit about yourself?
I feel like you said it. I'm Fabra. My pronouns are she, her. I wear many hats, many hats in general, but particularly I think in the areas where our work sort of intersect. So I am the founder and principal of Camille Communities LLC. I'm also a partner at Gladiator. And for the last several years, I've been a senior director at Forward Through Ferguson. So we've been, working with and through philanthropy for some years together and supporting youth in schools and supporting all
See,
these different
you
things.
left out the origin story.
Yeah, people don't even know like our origin story.
Cool. You were the director of racial equity capacity building
Yep.
at City Garden Montessori.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we knew each other before Amelia Siebert came along, as a matter of fact.
I think it was right when she first was
Joined
joining.
us in the world.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to share this space with you. It has been several lifetimes in St. Louis this week. Heck, it's been several lifetimes in the state of Missouri this month, I will also say. So before we get into sort of what's been going on here, how are you? How are you coming into the conversation? And of course, what are you sipping on today?
Yes. So I know that how are you was not a loaded question. And it's like for the last week when people were like, how are you? I'm like, just taking a deep breath because it's a lot. You
Yeah,
know, I,
that's also the answer. The answer can be a deep sigh.
it's a lot. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that my family and my home, we are safe. Our neighborhood did see some damage. I live in University City, which is not in the majorly impacted areas, but many of my neighbors didn't have power until just like 2 days ago. So
Yep.
thankfully we were, physically untouched by the storm, but just emotionally and trying to figure out how to help out and be there for the community and the first responders. It's a lot to think about, and I'm just doing my best to be present and use the day how I can, and just commit to continuing to try to be helpful as long as possible. And I think that's the best I can do. But in general, I think I just wanted to start with gratitude because the impacted area is very close to where I live. And it also is where I'm from historically. So Walnut Park East is one of the areas that was severely impacted by the storm. And I'm a little bit afraid to drive by my childhood home. I don't know if it's still there. And
Sure.
yeah, so it's a lot to think about, a lot to take in.
Yeah. So, for those of y'all who've been joining us for the last few weeks, last Friday, during our Friday Live, actually, I was coming to y'all from Minneapolis, where I had taken my children for the weekend, and we were in wonderful conversation about the upcoming Ethical Nonprofit Summit with Deanna Farias Heinrich when an EF3 tornado touched down in the city of St. Louis. If you don't hear about tornadoes happening in cities, it's because they don't happen very often. And unfortunately, this one was moving so quickly that within a few minutes, unfortunately, also acknowledging that our tornado sirens did not go off, decimated hundreds of homes on the west side and the north side of our city. Um, 5 people lost their lives here in our region. A number of people are injured. The latest counts have us at, believing that about 5,000 homes and buildings have been destroyed or are damaged to the point they're not inhabitable. We have at least over the last week have had about 100,000 people who have been without power, and likely still 3,000 to 5,000 people who have not had power for a week.
Mhm.
It was a lot. It was terrifying. And I'll, be honest with you, on Friday, um, my phone was blowing up while we were having this conversation. Um, our colleague Amy, who had been on the live with us, had to seek shelter. Happily, her home was not impacted by the tornado itself, just the thunderstorm. But our community is reeling right now. So I will also say that for the last 2 weeks, I have joined this call with ice water. And my body has been so dysregulated.
The last 2 sessions, because it's only been a week.
Yeah, exactly. Come to you with a CBD seltzer today that I am sipping on because I'm trying to figure out how to get my body a little more regulated, a little less anxious. So Faber reminded me it's not going to kick in until later, but thank goodness for that. So
I have the same thing, and I also have my diffuser running, and I added some chamomile oil and some bergamot oil and some frankincense in there too. So all those nice essential oils like help me, just kind of stay in my body, which is very, very important, to be present and to be responsive and to be helpful. So,
yeah. So I would love for you, if you could, to share a little bit about the St. Louis region and our history. And I think some context for folks for why this instance of this tornado, why this devastation is, honestly just compounded on top of other institutional and systemic realities in our region.
Yeah. So I will say I am not going to claim that I am purely a historian, but I do have somewhat of a background in history. My bachelor's is in African American studies, and one of the things that continues to be important to me is understanding the history and context of the St. Louis region. I would say as of late, there are 2 books that I would recommend that people check out. One is The Broken Heart of America by Dr. Walter Johnson. And then the newer book that has come out recently is the book about Ferguson, The People's Story of Ferguson by Dr. Stephen Bradley. Those are very important books that I would ask you all to check out. And just in general, systemic racism is like built into the grid and the city plan of St. Louis. Look at the color line. It has looked exactly the same for well over 100 years. Okay. The majority of Black residents, people of color residents, are on the northern part of St. Louis, the north and the western part of St. Louis. And that is the target, that is the area that the super tornado has devastated the most significantly. There is a large Black population on the south side of St. Louis historically, as well as a Latinx and urban indigenous population as well on the south side. And when you talk about Black political power, Black just sort of organizations, marquee organizations that have really led change efforts in the St. Louis region. We're talking about North City and the West Side have very, very important areas of power and of resource. And they've been places that have been intentionally neglected and have been intentionally blighted, and that, developers have avoided and preyed upon in some ways. And so it is truly frustrating and sad and scary that nature made the decision that this was the area that would be impacted the most by this super tornado. So you're looking at an area where for the last 60 years, there's been, sort of disinvestment, deindustrialization, loss of jobs, loss of high quality school options. All of that has contributed to just sort of there not being very much infrastructure. And now, two areas that already needed our support need it even more urgently. There are people who are unhoused that were not unhoused last week. There are people who don't have food, don't have cash on hand, that had all those things or barely had those things
Yeah.
last week. And so I just want to commend the community of people who were the first responders. So the people stepped in first. And I know we'll talk about some of those people later, but just saying that to say the community has always had power.
Yeah.
We have not always had resources. And like I said, I'm historically from Walnut Park East,
Yeah.
and that is on the north side and is one of the areas that there's been kind of a systematic disinvestment in that area since like the 70s when my grandparents moved there. So
no, I appreciate you sharing your own lived experience and some context with us. When you say disinvestment, I had the opportunity, and years ago there was a Little Sisters of the Poor nursing home that was based in on St. Louis Avenue in North City.
Okay.
And my family's Catholic, and so my grandfather was housed there from, I think, maybe 2009 or 2010 until his death in 2017. So every week, or almost every week, I found myself, visiting him with my kids, with my parents, and I just think about how little that region changed over the course of that period of time. There aren't new stores opening up. There's not a grocery store. There's not little shops, right? There's not people, government investing in making this community a beautiful place that is attractive to people from the entire region. I think it's also worth noting that because of the policies that institutions create, a lot of the people who have lived on the north and the west side, they haven't been able to get insurance for their properties because that's been too expensive, or there was work that needed to be done on the land, right? And so truly, in some ways, this storm that came through last week was that perfect storm. It was that one disaster between people's livelihood and lack thereof.
Right.
But I want to talk about the good stuff with you. You mentioned the people's response. I will tell you from Minneapolis last weekend, the first person I heard from was our client, Tasha Phoenix, who founded an organization named Acres. She is a food justice leader. And she said, how are people going to get their medicine? Their medicine were probably in those homes. And so, I thought, okay, who do I know? I can pick up the phone. I can call. I can get them connected. The next call that I got was from a parent at my kid's school that said, hey, I know somebody at World Central Kitchen. Can I introduce them to you? Can you get some things figured out? And my mind from Minneapolis last weekend was, okay, Rachel, you got to figure out how to get folks some medicine, and we got to figure out how to get some food on the ground. What was happening here in St. Louis?
I actually was in Boston on Friday, and I heard from my family. We have like a little family text thread, and they're like, is everybody safe? Is everybody still at home? And we usually do that, but the conversation kept going. And, my sister sent some pictures of, and also my partner too, it took them well over an hour to get home. And usually their commutes would be 15 minutes. So trees were completely down, and there's some old trees in the St. Louis region. So we're talking about 200-year-old trees that are laying across Forest Park Parkway, that are laying across
and
Del Mar. And these are major streets, okay?
Right, are just
major streets.
Many wingspans, right?
trees, materials from buildings, old and new, uh, broken glass everywhere.
Windows are blown out.
Just a lot.
It looks like somebody dropped a bomb.
And I wasn't going to say that, but that's.
I will say it.
Seeing people in the videos from inside of friends and family members' houses, it looks like the city was bombed. When you look at like drone footage and stuff that came out the next day and stuff like it, a huge injustice was had. This was gonna be, I say this sometimes, but I'm like, because I would say I'm a religious person. Like, if there is a heaven and if there is a God, this is going to be one of the questions I got for Big G. Like, what was going on when you decided that the super tornado hit right here? Like, well, what was going on? I'm so curious about that. But, and, just kind of my philosophical wonderings aside, as you said, there was, the community responded first. And so I was just hearing from people in my personal network, like, okay, Action St. Louis and For the Culture out there, For the Ville is out there, and Dr. Punch, Brick, Power for STL, they're out there. Black Healers Collective's out there.
And these are
STL's out there. We Power's out there. It's just like the people that I knew to do something, they were already there. They already had it covered. There was a massive community organized response to get people resources right now. They responded before the government did. They responded before the city did. These are facts. We can prove this.
Everybody has responded before FEMA has. Let's just throw that out there.
And everybody has responded before FEMA has. Even the folks that like spray for roaches and stuff, they've come out before FEMA. They're like, we can help with the spiders and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anyway.
I think, I woke up on Saturday morning, starting to see some of the photos that folks were posting and then saw, like you said, Action St. Louis and For the Culture had posted up at YMCA location, the O'Fallon YMCA up there, and said, okay, like, we're accepting donations, drop your stuff off. They created, a very simple Google form, right? This isn't high tech. These are small Black-led nonprofit organizations that are based in community that do organizing work. And by the time the weekend was over, it sounds like 3,000 people had signed up to volunteer. There was a steady stream of people dropping off donations, throughout the weekend and honestly throughout this week. And then, as we got into the week, started to see some of those, I think, larger organizations, more well-known, but less nimble, right? Less responsive, start to pull things together. But y'all, over the course of the last week, I have seen this community show up for itself in a way that I don't think in my almost 43 years of living here I have witnessed before. And I was alive, right, in 1993 when the floods happened. Like, I remember that.
I remember that, but I was like,
I want to hear it. I was 11. Okay, I was 11.
I was like 5.
Yeah,
so sorry,
but we've had environmental crises before, and there's something about this. There's something about the way that our community activated that I am overwhelmed by generosity. I am reminded of the kindness of strangers. I think people have felt called to show up with what they have where they can. Gladiator Consulting, one of the things that I did was put a call out on my LinkedIn, and I was like, hey, people outside of the region, if you're worried about me, I'm cool, but like, my neighbors need your help. Here are some places you can donate to, but also let's talk about mutual aid. Like, there are people who need money right now. They can't go to work. They might not have transportation anymore.
Or childcare, because there were childcare centers that were.
They don't have childcare. They don't have the food that they would normally eat or a way to prepare it. And so over the course of the last week, people from outside of the community have been sending us money, and we've distributed almost $10,000 in aid. We are redistributing 100% of what we receive. That's been Target runs. It's been buying. Our colleague Sarah bought plywood sheets and 2x4s and other materials. We've been dropping off Gatorade and other wellness items with Dr. Punch, who's posted up at Fountain Park, and is offering this lovely space for activists and community to rest, to feel safe, to feel heard, to nourish themselves. It is almost as if everybody in this community found a way to give what they could give, and haven't stopped for the last week.
And what I know is that they won't. Like, what I know about these people in these organizations that were the first to be out there is that since they were founded, they've always been committed to the community.
Right.
I mentioned earlier, I said the community has always had power. It hasn't always had resources. I still would like to double down on that. You know, it's very, very easy to talk about the North Side and the West Side, and kind of specifically hone in on how urgent things are, that there's help and that there's investment and that there's collaboration and all that. And Black St. Louis and co-conspirators and allies and the people of color community, as well as white St. Louisans that live here and have ties there as well. We have banded together when we really needed to. And I just really, really want to keep saying, like, the community really pulled up to help each other. There is like stations up. People are feeding each other. People are sitting there and reading to people's kids. People are taking shifts and checking on elders who cannot leave their homes. Like, there is a huge lift. And, you know, I said I'll have questions for Big G about like why this, and it's like, this is a moment where it's like everybody has to respond.
Yeah. I
think because the question is, when your kids 10 years from now are like, man, remember when we suffered that really, really huge catastrophe? Mom, what did you do? What did you do to help out? Or Dad, what did you do to help out? Or what you were there when that happened? How did you help people? How did you respond? What did you give to the community? Everybody has to answer for that now. And it's a long, long history of people neglecting and just it being easy to forget about the North Side and it being easy to forget about the West Side. And we can't do that anymore. Everybody has to answer for what they did and what they did not do to support this region, particularly the people that have continued to invest in it and love on it and grow it, even when everybody else did not.
Yeah, I hear that. And I feel so proud of this community. I said at some point, I think in the last week, that community is survival. Yeah. It just is. And I also know that there's years worth of damage to repair. And, you know, I'm really curious from your perspective, what should rebuilding look like? I mean, you've already said this is a community that has been marginalized. This is a community that people have taken from. And yes, there is power in that community and there is generosity. I mean, I also need to say that when I had the chance to visit with residents on Monday and Tuesday, I'm literally trying to cash app people. I'm like, let me send money that I'm receiving from these generous folks outside of the region. They're like, oh, my windows are just blown out. You got to go down the street and talk to so-and-so's granny because she's got some problems with the roof and they need to do the tarp. Or like, even in this moment of just destruction, people who were impacted were still saying yes and, right? So what is the yes and? Like, we are going to rebuild. And what does it look like?
You know, it's a very complex answer. I know that what we're doing right now is like what we need to do right now. Yes, let's continue to board up windows, tarp, homes that are salvageable and stuff like that. But I think just I'm curious about if there's RAM settlement money and ARPA money and Bloomberg money and all these
I mean,
money
there is money. We
have
know
come.
there is. That money does exist.
No, it's there, but like since executive orders are highly used now, it's a
Mhm.
popular thing for people, elected officials in executive positions now can, do those sorts of things. Is there some sort of willingness for a very courageous investment in the people by, okay, we can utilize the money that this city has to finally rebuild places that always deserved to be rebuilt. So I think the resources are there, but I want to see a courageous decision from government and also from philanthropy,
Mhm.
because there is money that's being raised right now in a couple different trusted community foundations and private foundations. Let's put our heads together to
Yeah.
rebuild these neighborhoods. And then also, like, I don't hate the idea of asking some of the corporations that do business here to let people stay in hotels for a couple weeks for free,
Yeah.
while people can get a chance to take a deep breath, because there is some confusion about how the assessments are going. We see the
Mhm.
stickers and people want to know, like, okay, we said we're not condemning the houses, but I'm also
Right.
being told that I cannot come back into my house. So for things like that, are there hotels or even
Airbnb is.
rentals? Like, how can we put pressure on these massive, corporations that make a lot of money in the St. Louis region to ask them to give back to the community by allowing people to stay there for free, short term, and then long term maybe for reduced cost. Like, I think these are things that we can ask for. I'm not a city planner, I'm not a developer by trade, but I do know that it can be done where there's a will. And I think the thing that I'm concerned about is that there are people with new interest in these areas now, because of, oh wow, there's so much opportunity here. And it's like, yeah, well, that opportunity was always there.
Mhm.
And if you're going to try to put your hands in to try to help redevelop these areas, please make some relationships with the community.
Yeah.
Please make some relationships with the people who live on those blocks, who've
Mhm.
been investing in that community for all these years without any support from the business community. Please make relationships with them before you're going in there and just kind of busting in and stealing their bricks, right? Because
Yeah.
there's some of that too, and yeah, I mean, that's just my initial thought. But and also,
Mhm.
I said something about the community always having power. I also said I'm somewhat superstitious. And I think the way that we speak over ourselves and like the words that we use count. And so instead of saying, oh, they haven't had power for days, I've been saying there's no electricity,
Mhm.
right? Because they do have power. Our
Mhm.
community has always had power, and we see the power that they have, and we see the resilience that we have right now. So yes, we have power. No, the electricity has failed, the grid has failed,
Yeah.
right? And so just even stuff like that, just trying to lay my prayers and lay my good intentions
Yeah.
um, onto the community, as I'm also trying to figure out how to continue to organize philanthropy and connections and adjacency to you know city officials and things like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about, and not everybody has expertise in every single thing, but whatever you have expertise in, whatever connections that you have, just pull up to try to do something helpful. You don't have to be every single where, but be somewhere right now. It's very important for everybody to use their gifts and talents and energy to support.
And if you are not in the region or not sure, there are lots of different places that we are happy to connect you with. And as I shared, we are engaging in mutual aid. So how you can help, friends. There are so many different organizations doing really great work right now, but Action St. Louis and For the Culture are really leading the people's response, along with For the Ville and The Brick and We Power. So those are some organizations that you can definitely support. We will be sharing this information on social media as well, but some of the materials that are needed if you're in the region, or it's a long holiday weekend, y'all, if you want to take a road trip, we do need skilled laborers to help with tools and equipment. Water is an ongoing need. Tarps, lumber. We had a couple folks who reached out to colleagues and got these enormous billboard vinyls, which are wonderful. So, shout out to Nicole Hudson and Joe Brinkman for making those calls. Safety gear, batteries and extension cords, cleaning supplies, handheld fans are things that folks need. We've also heard about the need for thanks. So Action St. Louis, they're posted up at the O'Fallon Park YMCA. They are collecting non-perishable food. If you're bringing canned goods, make sure they have that pop top. Reusable tote bags for people to pick up different kinds of hygiene kits, diapers and other things for children, as well as personal hygiene items, shampoo, conditioner, toothpaste, toothbrushes, floss, things like that. What else we got? Yes, donate money. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. So here are the organizations. If you're interested in making a charitable contribution to Action St. Louis, For the Ville, Acres, and the Brick, you can see their information there. As I have continued to say, Gladiator is engaging in mutual aid. We are providing direct cash assistance to people in the neighborhood that have been impacted by the tornado. You can Cash App Gladiator RDS. Those resources have been coming straight to me, and I have a waiting list, and they're going straight out as soon as they're received. So we are happy to share this, like I said, on social media, and continue to do what we can to stabilize the region as we look towards rebuilding stronger and with the power of the community at the center of the rebuilding. We're on a long road, Fabra. What should we be thinking about when you get past that initial shock of it all?
I think we should be thinking about what's possible. It is very tempting and very easy to just hyper focus on the complexities of how challenging things are right now. And I think that's perfectly natural, perfectly sound. It makes perfect sense. And I also think that this is the time. This is the time where it's time to dream. This is the time where it's time to shoot your shot. Like if you have a brilliant idea, if you have a lot of skills, a lot of skill sets, now is the time to start opening your mouth and going out and making these connections with folks who care and who are standing out on the streets and say, hey, what if we tried this? Or who's talking about that? Or who's meeting about this? Like now is the time for us to name our dreams out loud and to put our hands on the community and in these areas. And rebuilding, it'll be rebuilding of buildings, but it's also rebuilding of a legacy, because these places also have very, very strong legacies. Particularly the Ville and Walnut Park and O'Fallon, so much cultural capital, so much legacy, the contributions of Black St. Louisans from these areas. We're talking about world-class artists, world-class educators, entire, global organizations that exist because of people that came from these places. Like the heritage and the celebration of these communities can be restored, but we also have to continue to agree that like the people who are there right now also deserve to be celebrated. History is not just the past,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
History is not just the past. History is also a telling, like a telling of the future.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just very important to dream, and it's very important to understand heritage and to understand history. And that as we celebrate ancestors and the people from the past, like the people who live right now will be ancestors one day. And we should treat them with honor and respect, and meet them with creativity, and meet them with an open mind, and do our best to meet them with a spirit of positivity and
Mhm.
hopefulness as well. So if you're having a day where your mood is low, where you're feeling it, you're feeling down, you want to cry, please feel your feelings, but like take a wellness day, right?
Yeah.
Take a wellness day and step back, take a deep breath. And then when you go out there, you meet people with a smile, you meet people with a hug, you meet people with a, I'm here for you, and we're going to get through this, right?
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
positivity, right, and not fake positivity, like an
no.
authentic love. Like people our community, we can feel when people are really loved, right? And nobody wants to feel like people are just coming because they feel guilty or because they feel burdened. They want people who really want to love on them, and who are trustworthy to come and stand there and support them. So if
No.
you want to cry on TV, or if you want to, do the thing, do that at home.
Mhm.
Take a deep breath, and then when you get the microphone, say what you need to say
Yeah.
with your mind together, and
Mhm.
represent our community well, please.
I mean, what I hear from you is that in the face of this loss, there is great abundance, there is great opportunity, there is great power, and we have each other.
Right.
And we have what we need. We have everything we need, right? I will offer. You and I had this conversation that when we are moving through moments of crisis, we also have to take care of ourselves or let other people care for us.
Yep.
I think you and I have both had all right, it's time to close the computer. It's time to put the phone down. It's time to go hug the babies. We got to do something different. So I also encourage folks that are listening that if you have been involved or are feeling like me and very triggered and agitated and not very regulated, that you take a minute and you do what you need to take care of your body, take care of your community, tell them what you need, right? You got to ask sometimes for what you need. Because if we burn out, if we're out of the game, we don't get to help. And so we have to do what we can to take care of ourselves and fill our cup. So
Yeah.
with that, Fabra, I would like to ask one closing question.
Okay.
And that is, what is bringing you joy?
What is bringing me joy? I'm a mom, and my 4-year-old child is a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
He's hilarious. He's always saying some new, he has like these catchphrases, and I don't know where he gets these catchphrases from, but he talks like a kid from like a 1950s sitcom or something. Like he's like, "Oh, gee, golly. Oh, wow." I'm like, "Where who are you, and where are you getting these words from?" So, listening to him develop his catchphrases is funny, and then he also has discovered the harmonica. So,
Oh gosh.
that's been bringing me joy, seeing him be interested in instruments. I think it's
You're a better mama.
yeah, how kids develop their own interests.
Look, when Amelia discovered the harmonica, I hid it from her. So thank you. Thank you for letting your child lead, because I was like, my ears can't do it.
That is the harmonica, the tambourine, the loudest instruments possible. He loves them all, and just kind of playing the same notes and stuff repetitively, banging he's throwing the maracas against the
Yeah.
wall
Uh-huh.
and stuff. I
Uh-huh.
love it. I think it's great.
And I love that you love it. And I will come visit you when he is at school, maybe, or
Okay.
you're at the park.
Amen.
All right. On that note, want to wish y'all a lovely weekend. I hope you have time to rest, to realize when you're feeling joy, to think about the ways in which you can serve your community. And we will see you back here next Friday at 2:30 Central. Happy weekend and cheers, Fabra.
Cheers. Be safe, everybody.